Welcome to the Rev MD Podcast channel with me, your host, Dr. Debra Durst, and my co-host.
Hey guys, my name is Farideh Golembieski, and I am a board-certified family nurse practitioner with RevitalyzeMD.
So today we are going to do a fun topic because we always like talking about myths of different things. So today we're going to
Just so we can argue.
Yeah, we don't agree on all the myths because frequently, yes, we have different versions. And there is one at the very end of this that we are not going to agree upon.
But that's okay. The facts are the facts, Deb. You can't change the facts.
Perception. It's the facts in your world. So anyhow, the myths of PT-141. This will be a fun one. So if you haven't heard of PT-141, we'll talk about what that is. And
We've done podcasts before on the nasal sprays and the injectables, so check those out if you have more questions.
And there was a long, very science detailed one that goes into and deep dives into the mechanism of PT-141. And that was a while back. So definitely check out our other podcasts about peptides and PT-141. So what is it? It is a peptide, which is an amino acid sequence that is going to simulate a neurotransmitter hormone in the body. And this one works on melanocortin receptors that are in the brain to increase your sex drive, orgasmic strength, and basically
desire.
Yeah, erections, all of that. So we're going to get into the myths. Go ahead and give them to me.
All right. So we're going to talk top myths and misconceptions of PT-141. And the first one right off the bat is it works the same as Viagra or Cialis. Myth.
Yes, that is definitely a myth. And so if you look at like melanocortin are receptors in the brain. And so PT-141 works from a neurologic pathway and brain mechanism where the
Cialis and Viagra, which are your PED5 inhibitors,
those
work on blood flow.
Yeah, those are going to increase your blood flow. So it's definitely a different mechanism. Yeah. So when you use them together, there are studies that support that, and it basically improves the efficacy of the Viagra, Cialis, or sildenafil and tadalafil, or Levitra, whatever you're using. So the PD5 inhibitors is how we're going to describe those. That's what we're going to say instead of the little blue pill going forward. But basically, it improves the efficacy of that. And so...
Yeah. So the reality is, it is not the same, but they play nice together.
They play very nicely together. All right. So what is the next one?
All right. The next myth is that PT-141 is only for women. So we do know that the FDA has approved this product for women for hypoactive sexual dysfunction disorder. But is it only for women?
Yeah. Well, and there's a whole lot of stuff.
The answer to that is no.
The answer is no, though. As soon as whenever we say that it is a peptide that is first line and the only thing approved really for hyposexual desire disorder in women, it can get me going on for a little while. But we're going to stick with PT-141 right now. And so it is approved, and Vyleesi is the product. And it is pretty much a one dose fits all and pretty pricey, but it does work, but not just for women.
And it only is available as an injectable pen, single dose, no adjustment of that dose. And what we find in clinic is that women don't need that high of a dose.
Correct.
And that we should be able to adjust that dosing to minimize side effects and increase benefits of the medication.
And then it would be an off-label use for men, and we probably use it more frequently in men and less in women, surprisingly. At least men are approaching us more for PT-141, but of course we have a comprehensive approach in how we address women, but we have other tricks that actually probably work very well for getting the sex drive up in women. And so we often don't even need PT-141, and we've corrected the sex drive in women.
Yeah,
so
typically just hormone adjustment.
Yeah.
We'll take care of that,
Yeah.
right? We talked about this earlier. Just fix the problem.
Just fix the
And
problem.
we don't need all the other things.
No, optimize the hormones, and then you don't need a lot of the other things that you hear recommended.
Correct the underlying problems, and things start to get better.
Go figure. We're rambling again. Huh?
I know. Okay.
On to the next.
We'll go to the next myth. When it comes to hormones, we can go down that rabbit hole.
Can.
Okay, so the third myth is that PT-141 is a magical fix to all your sexual problems. That is a myth.
Yeah, well, I don't think there's ever a one and done in life and a one fix in life either.
No.
quite frankly. You probably have some, but this is, again, sexual issues or functional issues, sexual dysfunction issues, both in men and women, are a multifactorial issue that needs to be addressed in multiple ways. And everybody's different. And so it's not a one size fits all for sure.
Do some people only use PT-141 and get amazing results and don't need anything else? Of course. But then are there other people that use this as just one more tool in that toolbox to use? That is also an of course. So it is not a magical one and done. Just like the little blue pill is not a magical one and done. It can work for some, but not all.
And in our practice and experience, again, I feel like hormone optimization is the core, and then peptides are, again, the icing on the cake, the whipped cream on top of the icing on the cake. And that's probably more how we approach it. So,
healthy lifestyle, your relationship, your hormones, all that's going to play a role in your sexual desire. This is just going to help increase it if those other things are already in order.
Correct. Can take it to the next level.
Absolutely. So we ready for the next one?
I'm ready.
All right.
They're ready.
PT-141 works instantly. Myth.
Yeah, that I agree with. So
this we talk about often.
Correct. And so timing, I, do believe that, again, it works. And just when does it work? And when do people love it? It's usually a timing for that individual, because it might be 30 minutes, it might be 5 hours. It depends on the person.
Everybody varies. That's one thing with this medication, and dosing varies significantly person to person.
Yes. And I will say that we did another podcast on intranasal versus subcutaneous. So if you're giving a shot and it's just a small needle and a shot, but into the subcutaneous, that sometimes the onset is a little bit longer, but the duration is longer. And so when you're doing an intranasal, potentially that takes effect a little faster, but it doesn't last as long. So there's not only variability with patients, but there's also variability in
the route administration.
Yeah. So
absolutely.
All
right. The next one. This is another myth that we talk about often, is that PT-141 has no side effects. That's
a myth. Yeah, that's a myth for sure. So some of the peptides are very minimal in their side effects, but PT-141 is not one of those. Again, nausea is
That's probably the most common. You can have headaches, you can have flushing, but what I hear the most often in practice is, this made me nauseous. But that amount of nausea varies patient to patient. It could be very minimal. It's nothing. I've never really had anyone that stopped the medication because of the nausea. Have you?
I think one person over the period of 5 years, one person. So I will say that when it comes to nausea, I do feel like it's dose dependent, though, for sure. And so the higher the dose, the more likely you are, which is why, again, you don't need that high dose in the manufactured or conventional version of that Valesi. You can go with a lower dose and you can adjust it. And then you do acclimate to it. And the first dose is probably the worst. And so the first time you take it is probably the worst. Again, you acclimate, and the higher the dose, the more severity of the nausea, but you still get used to it.
And there's things like ginger and B6 that can help with the nausea as well. Most patients don't need a prescription for the nausea.
And sometimes you can actually get those compounded into it, depending on the nasal spray,
depending on your healthcare provider, and if they're as comprehensive as we are.
Yes. So you can, there's always, and there's natural, things, such as Farideh mentioning ginger and B6 that help with nausea. And those are more natural ways to help with nausea so that you don't need a prescription. So, all right.
On to the next. So this comes up a lot with a lot of peptides, not just PT-141, but PT-141 is dangerous or unregulated. That is a myth.
It's a myth for sure. So
absolutely.
So there's a lot of talk
don't go down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, I
kind of led you there. I apologize.
I won't. No, well, this one is, I think, a little more simple because again, there's a lot of podcasts on peptides, and there's a lot of talk about compounding pharmacies and conventional, prescriptions or conventional medications and compounded versions of them. So just know that, number one, that there are compounding pharmacies are highly regulated. Number one, they are regulated on the state and the federal level, and they're FDA approved pharmacies, so they are regulated. But you have to, like if a conventional drug such as PT-141 is in a conventional form, like Vilesi, then they can compound it, and you're still using it off label, even if it's a conventional sometimes, versus a compounded prescription. Both of those are regulated and safe. There's always potentially bad players, and you're getting it from, places you shouldn't
Yeah.
be in the black market, and we don't
Bottom
recommend that
line, get
at
it from a
all.
prescriber,
A
from a valid
prescriber.
pharmacy.
Yes, you have. I love the bullet points. She's
That's
bullet
it.
pointing my rambling.
Prescriber,
So
valid
yes,
pharmacy. I won't let her go down a bullet or down a
yeah,
rabbit hole.
yeah.
We'll keep
You
moving.
Yes, you definitely need a prescription. You need a prescriber that specializes in peptides. You need a prescription for it because it is a prescription, and you need a place that you trust to get it from a FDA approved high quality compounding pharmacy, because that's how we're getting it, as a compounded prescription. But they are highly regulated, and compounding doesn't mean not regulated, and that's the key. Is so peptides
That's
are
very
frequently
important.
compounded, and they are from regulated pharmacies if you trust the office you're using, and don't get it online or gray market.
There we go.
Sort of, yeah.
See?
Don't get it online.
Don't get it online.
No.
Get it from a prescriber. A
Yes.
real one.
Yes, there are issues with the online, and we can talk about that on a different podcast.
And we probably should, because I think we could go on for a while on that.
And compounding
It's a little bit of a
pharmacies, too.
soapbox, I think, for both of us.
Yeah.
But all right, moving on. The next one.
I will also say just before that compounding pharmacies are the pharmacists are extremely knowledgeable.
Oh my goodness, we
Yeah.
have some of the best. Our go-to here. I mean, we have some pharmacists here, some compounding pharmacists that are amazing.
And we actually have another podcast where he was on, and we were talking about that exact thing, how it just provides you a more specialized form and version of our treatments. And we may have him back on. So
We should on that other
Yes.
podcast. All right, moving on to the next myth. PT-141 will make you constantly aroused. Myth.
everyone wishes, right?
Right?
For
Yes,
those-
it does
for
increase
those
sexual desire.
short of the persistent arousal disorder. But like this is, no, it doesn't make you constantly aroused, and you're not going to end up with an erection. Then you can't walk in public, but it does increase your chances of, and
You're not going to have an Anchorman moment.
Yeah,
Got a walking off a problem.
Yeah, no, it won't happen. Will not happen. I've not had that ever happen in practice, so that's for sure.
Nope, neither have I. So that is definitely a myth. It does improve sexual desire or enhance it, but it is not consistent, ongoing, where you can't get through the day or move on with life.
Like now.
Yeah. Like now. And sorry, I got distracted. Squirrel and next.
No.
All right, the last one. The next myth, that it works for everybody. So this is where we're going to disagree. I say that is a myth. It does not work for everybody. But Dr. Durst has a different opinion.
I mean, I just again, I've had one person that was nauseated, but I didn't have anyone but that was a side effect. So I don't know that we ever got to whether it works, but in my experience, almost everyone loves it. It's just a matter of when. And I get that feedback from all the patients that are on PT-141. And so that's just my experience with it is very good. And so I feel like that is close to being actually true, but nothing's 100%
I'm
in
going to
life.
put a little bit of a spin on that. So erectile dysfunction is multifactorial, right? We talked about that earlier. So there are some cases where this medication is not right for you, but we're also not prescribing that. So when we have patients that are on this medication, they are successful on it because we've already done the work of having the conversation, gone through the comprehensive health history, and have determined that this is the appropriate medication for the patient sitting in front of us. That's why it's successful. So our patients do very well on this medication, but the patient that I put on this is also not going to be the patient that has had prostate cancer or prostate removal that is having erectile dysfunction. this is not
Yes.
going to work for that patient. It may increase their desire, but it's not going to help their erectile dysfunction.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's the appropriate condition, the appropriate patient, and going to someone that knows what they're doing to make sure that you're not just getting on a medication to get on a medication, that it's the appropriate medication for you. So I do not believe it works for everybody.
Well, and all I can say is
It just works for our
what she
patients.
said was facts. Like, again,
Facts.
comprehensive. It's facts. Comprehensive is the way to go. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So look at her debating to the point where she's convinced me that it's a myth. Like,
It's a
because the
myth.
rest of it is facts.
Yay, I
So,
win.
yes, you win. When does that ever? When do you ever get that? Yeah. I know. Love it. All right. Well, anyhow, so that's PT-141 and all the myths in a nutshell. So let us know what you think, what your experience with PT-141. Love and can't wait to hear all of those. And then again, if there's anything else you want to deep dive into, just let us know because we are willing to deep dive into anything wellness or sexual wellness.